Thank you for listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast, where we discuss the latest and greatest news in the world of sports. I am Ben.
I am Alex.
And thank you for tuning back into the podcast here. We have a very, very busy schedule for you today. Going to be talking a little bit Stanley Cup Finals, Game 2 last night between the Penguins and the Sharks. We're going to preview the NBA Finals, which starts tonight, between the defending champion Golden State Warriors and the Cleveland Cavaliers. Maybe mention a little bit about OKC, what they did wrong there, a little Durant future as he is a free agent, and then we might close the show out with the French Open, which is currently winding down here. We have a lot of the semifinal matchups ready in both the men's and women's. So, Alex, how are you doing today?
I'm doing good. How are you doing today?
Doing quite well, except for this heat is really the only thing that's been getting on my nerves lately because
I know.
This
we were
whole
talking
week,
about this yesterday in the football podcast. It's so hot.
This whole week is over 100 degrees every day. I think tomorrow, which is Friday, is going to be the hottest day, which is 108, I believe.
And I have an outdoor wedding to go to.
Oh, man. I work outside a lot of the time. So, and lifting couches and, heavy
books and
heavy equipment. So
bags.
I'm just a struggle all day. It's terrible.
Understandable.
All right, so let's get into the show. So we're going to start off with Game 2 of the Stanley Cup Finals, which was last night in Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh came out on top in overtime. They won 2-1. Connor Sheary scores the goal that won them the game. Alex, you watched a lot of the game. What did you see?
It was a much more competitive game this time around. I mean, the first game was very competitive, but this one was a stalemate for a while. Pittsburgh didn't score until the second. It was a really back and forth first. A lot of good defense on both sides of the ice there, It was super, super competitive throughout, like I was saying, but it was a fun game to watch, too. Phil Kessel scored near the maybe halfway point, close to the halfway point of the second period. And then from there, they really controlled the game 1-0. I thought the Sharks were just going to go down 1-0, and they scored with 5 minutes left in the third period. Justin Braun scored his first goal of the postseason. And they tied it up going, and they pushed it overtime. And it was a really, really entertaining game. Unfortunately, it didn't take long for the Penguins to score that winning goal. Connor Sheary, in just 2 minutes, almost 2.5 minutes into the overtime period, they scored. But it was a really entertaining game. Total shots were pretty similar, 22-30 in favor of Pittsburgh. Giveaways, about half, and 4-8. Pittsburgh, again, had more there, but they had more turnovers, takeaways, also. They kind of handled the face-off. So it was, if you look at the stat line, Pittsburgh kind of dominated this game in a sense. But it doesn't mean that, the Sharks are down 2-0, but it's not like a 2-0 where you're sitting there like, well, they just have looked miserable these first two games. They're just done,
Yeah, I felt like the Sharks really had a great chance to win last night, especially late there in that third period. They had a ton of opportunities, but just couldn't get one after they got their initial goal through to take a lead in that game. They had to go to overtime, and then Connor Sheary with the second goal at the Stanley Cup Finals, he scored in Game 1 as well. So he's really playing well. The Sharks are down 2-0 now, but they did have both those games in Pittsburgh, so they're going to go home on Saturday for Game 3. Really a must-win game for their season because down 3-0 against the Penguins, it's going to be really, really tough for the Sharks. So what do they have to do to – I mean, this Game 2 was a lot more – I wouldn't say one-sided, a lot more closer, as you mentioned. What do they need to do to win Game 3? They're going to have the home ice. What do they need to do to get out on top?
I think they need to come out the energy that the Penguins really showed up with yesterday in that game, and they need to capitalize on the fact that they're playing at home in a comfortable kind of location there for them, and they need to convert on those opportunities that you're saying they were so close to scoring at times, and they just didn't happen. It is interesting too to note that the final goal there in overtime was actually a play drawn up in a sense by Sidney Crosby.
Okay, explain.
He pretty much. He said, look, I have to read the report again, but he pretty much said, look here, guys, we're going to have a chance here on this play to go and get this win. If you do how I say it, pretty much, I'm going to plan it this way. We're going to do it. So pretty much what he said. Let me see if I have a quote on that. He says, before the Penguins gathered his teammates before the face-off, Crosby told Sheary to move from his normal position on the draw to the boards. He explained that he was going to win the draw back to the defenseman Chris Letang, and then Letang was going to give Sheary a pass in the middle of the ice where the Sharks weren't likely to expect him, and that's pretty much where he scored from. And it was, it's weird too that you see that kind of stuff. It's almost like when you hear quarterbacks talking about, okay, you're going to be here, I'm going to hit you with the ball right there. It's crazy sometimes. Those guys, like, they just direct it and it happens exactly like they say it. They really just seem like students of the game in a sense.
Yeah, well, Sidney Crosby doesn't have that C on his jersey for anything. He is the captain. He's a very smart player. He's a veteran. He's won a Stanley Cup before. He knows what it takes to get it done. He's such a smart player, a good player.
He used to be one of my favorites for a while.
Yeah, that year, a lot of people were comparing Ovechkin and Crosby because they came out the same year, and Ovechkin's really struggled when it comes to postseason time, and Crosby's really got it done.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
He's such a smart player. He's, one of the best players of recent times.
And also goes to mention too, another great great game in the goals for both goalies here too. Really productive, 28 saves on the Sharks' end, 21 on the Penguins' end. Of course, 2-1 goals allowed, but really competitive game. Like I was saying, I really just think the Sharks need to come into San Jose. They need to just come out, with nothing to lose. I mean, I don't mean to say they have nothing to lose, but they need to come out and play like it's their last game.
With the Sharks never being in the Stanley Cup before, these players never really being there, do you think the pressure, the lack of inexperience has really gotten to them?
I mean, you could think of it that way. I mean, you look at guys like Pavelski and Thornton and guys that have been there in the league for a long time. I don't know if you can necessarily say that they are, if it's that different for them, You like to think that guys that have been in the league that long and are that, solid of players and have been around for everything, even if they haven't been around for this, you feel like it's not something that would faze them as much, you know. So I don't know if it's necessarily that. I just think that the defense of the Penguins has been really just opportunistic, and you're right, the Sharks haven't capitalized on the moments that they need to capitalize on.
I think that's been the difference in the series so far, because you look at Game 1 as well, the Penguins scored really late in the game. Yeah. Game 2 here, they score in overtime. It's like the Sharks have really just given up that late goal as opposed to necessarily not handling the pressure. They've been close games, only 1-goal game each time, so not like they're getting blown out or anything. So I think they're just, not really converting right when they need to and just losing their focus right when they don't want to.
And it's not even necessarily an offensive struggle either for the Sharks, because they are scoring goals. You're right. It is that it seems almost that late game defense is really kind of missing from their game these last couple of games. So they're going to need to shore that up, because they can't win with multiple late game scores. It's just not going to. I mean, and of course, overtime is going to be late no matter what, but that goes with saying, capitalizing. But yeah, they really need to shore up the near net defense and just kind of make it their game, play their game and make the Penguins adjust to that, because they're a good team. They're not in the Stanley Cup Finals for nothing,
Yeah, they got all the way through the West. They didn't do it by luck or chance. They did it by getting the job done and winning games.
Exactly. So that's what I'm looking for. I want to say that the Sharks come out tomorrow. I want to say they win. I hope they
win Game 3.
They need to.
Yeah, definitely. If they have any chance in winning this series, obviously down 3-0, there still is a chance. You think of some of the great 3-0 comebacks, the Red Sox over the Yankees, the Kings, ironically, did it against the Sharks a few years ago in the Western Conference playoffs. But against a team like the Penguins with a leader like Crosby, I really don't see it happening.
It's going to be
so they need to win
tough.
This game.
Yeah, they play on Saturday. They open up the Stanley Cup for the first time ever in San Jose.
Yeah, definitely a huge feat for them. Unfortunately, they're going to have to do it down 2-0, but definitely a big game there in the Bay Area. Big game for the Sharks as well.
100%, yeah.
Yeah, I read this interesting stat that if the Sharks and the Warriors, who are in the NBA Finals, which we'll talk a little bit later, if they both come out and win their respective finals, they'll be the first team in a market which is the Bay Area region here, to win both the NHL Final Stanley Cups and the NBA Final, the finals, in the same year. So there's been, I think, 8 teams who have tried, and they've all failed. Either one team wins and one doesn't, or they both lose. So,
wow, that would be cool.
Yeah,
that'd be big for
obviously the
Bay
Warriors,
Area.
I guess you can say, with that series not even starting yet, they have the better chance. The Sharks are down 2-0, but anything is possible. We'll have to see what happens Game 3 on Saturday in San Jose.
Yeah, I'm totally blanking on his name. Kevin Garnett said, anything is possible.
Oh, you're talking about when he was on the Celtics after he his heroic yell of
just
passion
and then cry.
Yeah. After they won, didn't he kiss the floor? I think that year.
Maybe.
After they won, they beat the Lakers that year in the finals.
Mm-hmm. Maybe he did. I don't know.
I think he did. But we're going to take a really quick commercial break here at the Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. We'll get a message from our sponsors, and we'll be right back. We're going to talk about the NBA Finals, which gets started tonight. Game 1 in Oakland between the Cavs and the Warriors. We'll be right back. Stay tuned.
Want to find out what movies to go see? Then check out the GSMC Movie Podcast. It's your ticket to the latest movies, whether it's a new blockbuster event, romantic, comedy, or action flick. This show has got it all covered. They talk some what to go see now. Don't bother. What's hot on Netflix and everything in between. That's GSMCpodcast.com/movie-podcast. When it's all about the movies, it has to be this new show. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
And we are back here at the Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. We're going to go ahead and open up the NBA section of today's show, and we're going to give you a little bit of a preview of the NBA Finals, which start tonight, as we were talking about, in Oakland, between the Golden State Warriors and LeBron James's Cleveland Cavaliers. So tonight, Game 1 starts at 6 Pacific time out here in Oakland. What are you looking for in this Game 1? What are you looking for from both teams here?
Well, we have a rematch of the finals last year. Obviously, I'd say both teams are a lot different. LeBron has his supporting cast this year as opposed to last year. Kevin Love was out, and then Kyrie got injured in Game 1. So I think in Game 1, we're sort of going to see a feeling out of each other, and then we're going to see a lot more adjustments as the series progresses. I feel like all the time in basketball and baseball, hockey, in a one-game situation in the regular season, anything can sort of happen. But when it comes down to a series, the better team usually comes out and wins, and it's about those adjustments you make in between games leading into the other games that really determine who comes out on top. So I feel like tonight's just going to be a feeling out of both teams. The Warriors are favored by 5.5 points to win tonight, so Vegas does like them. And I think the Warriors probably have the advantage in the series, so I don't know. It's going to be interesting. I feel like the team that has the role players step up best is going to be the team that comes out on top, because you look at the big three of each team. With the Warriors, you have Klay, Steph, and Draymond Green. And then with the Cavs, you have LeBron, Kyrie Irving, and Kevin Love. And then you have the role players on each teams. With the Warriors, you need to look at people like Harrison Barnes and Iguodala, who are going to be guarding LeBron mainly. And then with the Cavs, you have some of the shooters like J.R. Smith and then Channing Frye, who comes off the bench, that really stretches the floor because he's a 7-footer who steps out and hits the three.
I agree with you. I think that it's a big plus for the Cavaliers to have their two playmakers alongside LeBron James back with Kevin Love and Kyrie. I think it's going to be big to see, like you said, the big three, those three, and then what Klay, Steph, and Draymond can do. I think personally, I want to say the Warriors bench is a little deeper.
Yeah, they do.
The
They
Cavs.
do go a little deeper. You see people like Livingston come in. You see Barbosa coming in. Maybe Varejao a little bit here against his former team. He really had a nice game in Game 7 when he came in for just a couple minutes. He provided a little spark there. Maybe he comes in against his former team. I read an interesting stat that Varejao is the first person in NBA history who is playing in the finals when he played for both teams in the same season. Because he started with the Cavs, now he's on the Warriors.
Wow, that is quite the distinction for him.
Yeah, it's crazy, But we'll have to see what happens. What's your prediction for the series? What do you expect to happen, and who do you think is going to come out on top?
I want to say it's going to go to at least 6 games.
Okay.
It's so hard to judge these games between these two teams because you want to say, okay, the Warriors are going to win. It's like everybody's just, the Warriors are going to win because they're the Warriors. I still don't think of the Warriors as this big powerhouse team. I remember, 5 years ago when the Warriors weren't great at all.
Yeah, they really just had their coming up here.
Yeah, it's the same thing with like the Seahawks a few years ago, like up until the Beastquake in 2009 or 2010 or 11.
Talking about Marshawn Lynch's run against the Saints?
Yeah, against the Saints. I keep I forget the moment. Or excuse me, I
can never forget that moment.
Can't forget that moment. I can't recall the year at the moment, but I want to say 2011 because it was a year after Sam Bradford came into the league. But it's the same thing with the Seahawks. Is they weren't relevant and then they're relevant. So I think the Warriors are in a good spot. I want to say Warriors in 6, but it's so hard to judge now with all three of Cleveland's power players. If Cleveland wins, I think they win in 7.
Okay, I'm gonna take Warriors in 7.
Okay.
Last year, the series went 6 games. LeBron
by
pretty
himself
much carried the team by himself. You could have said LeBron might have been the MVP of the finals, even in a losing effort last year. Mm-hmm. So if they went 6 last year, I gotta feel like Kevin Love and Kyrie can make up one more game. So I'm gonna say the Warriors in 7.
Okay.
I think the big determining factor of the series, along with the role players, has to do with how Kevin Love is such a lack of a defender.
Yeah, he's horrible.
I mean, there's times where I feel like he can't even guard his own shadow.
Yeah.
And especially with the pick and roll, because you're going to have Draymond Green and Kevin Love. They have really similar body types, really similar styles, like they'll step out.
Except for Draymond can play defense.
Yes. So I feel like how Kevin Love and Kyrie, or maybe Kevin Love and J.R. Smith can guard the pick and roll with Clay and Steph on the other side, I feel like that's a huge factor. They're going to have to really step up.
Yes. I think 2 factors in this are going to be the defense that Kevin Love can play, and I think Iguodala is going to play a big part in this game again too.
Yeah, he was
a thorn in
MVP
their side last
year.
finals. Yeah, and on a team where you have the unanimous MVP, a guy who could get MVP like votes on any other team in the league, in Klay Thompson. I mean, depended of course how he would play with their team. Who knows, but. One of the best players at his respective position, and a guy who's a flex kind of 3-4 in Draymond, and then you have somebody like Iguodala who won the Finals MVP.
Yes.
Nobody would have guessed that. They would have said, okay, if the Warriors win, it's gonna be these those 3. If the Cavs win, it'll be LeBron no matter what kind of thing. Nobody saw Iguodala doing it. So Iguodala played great defense last year on LeBron. He had really good offensive production as well. But the big thing was just the defense he played on LeBron. That was the biggest thing for me, is if they can get him to play the same kind of effective defense as they did last finals, this finals, I think he's the X factor for the Warriors. Yeah,
the Warriors are going to constantly have fresh defenders to throw at LeBron because you figure you'll probably open up with Iguodala on him.
Yes.
You can throw
Iguodala's going to start game 1, I think.
You can throw a Harrison Barnes on LeBron. You can maybe put Klay Thompson on there. He's a really good defender as well.
Especially in space that LeBron likes to create between them.
Yeah, so between those 3, you're going to constantly rotate someone who's kind of fresh at LeBron James, which I think is a huge factor because you don't really have to guard J.R. Smith except on the perimeter. He's not going to attack the basket. He's there to shoot threes. He's a spot shooter.
Yeah. And I think the problem, too, for the Cavaliers going in is they don't have somebody like Russell Westbrook who can guard Steph the same way.
Yeah, Kyrie's a decent defender, but
he's good, but he's not Russell Westbrook. What? I'm sorry, I'm going too fast. Russell Westbrook is on another level of a defender. The way he defends is just like he doesn't leave you alone. He doesn't give you space.
Yeah, he's very aggressive.
Yeah, he doesn't give you. Yeah, he's an aggressive defender. He doesn't give you much. So I agree. I think it's really going to be a big thing on defense because both these teams are very offensive teams. Very offensively good teams. So I think it's going to be the defense that they can play on Steph, the defense they can play on LeBron, and I think it's going to be those who can pick up the spots in other places. Iguodala, if Clay can do it, if Harrison Barnes can do it, if Draymond can do it, if guys like Kyrie are going to be able to do it, if Love has a good series, if they just have somebody off the bench like Matthew Dellavedova,
great name by the way.
Yeah, that's a rhymey name right there, But people like that, yes, I think it's going to come down to obviously you have the people who are the reason they're in the finals, LeBron, Steph, Clay, but then you have people like these bench players and the facilitators are going to probably need to be the difference in this finals, I think.
Yeah, I think there's great storylines with this final series as well. You have the Warriors, the best regular season record in NBA history. They're going for the repeat of the finals. Steph is the repeat MVP now 2 years in a row.
Unanimous finally this year.
The first ever, by the way.
Yep.
And then you have LeBron, who is, come back to Cleveland, try to win a ring for Cleveland. They haven't won a major sport championship in over 50 years. So either way, depending on who comes out, you're going to have a great storyline for the respective cities and teams. So it's going to be a great series, I think. I'm really excited for it. Game 1's tonight, as we mentioned. I say the Warriors in 7. You say the Warriors in 6. It's going to be a great series, I think.
I think so, too. I'm really looking forward to it. We're going to, of course, update you guys on our next show on what occurs on these next few games. We'll be on Game 3 by then.
Yeah, so if game 1's tonight, Game 2 should be on Saturday, maybe Game 3.
Travel day.
Maybe they'll have Game 3 on Tuesday. Usually they have, when you go back to change cities, they have another day in between.
It's true. Well, we'll see how many games there are, but we'll update you guys, of course, on the most recent game and some of the happenings of the probably first 2 at least when we have our next show. But we're going to take a quick break here. We're going to get into some French Open news, some tennis news, just a little bit of an update on the French Open going on, entering its semifinals here. So we'll give you a little bit of that news today to head into your weekend here, and we will be right back here at the Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast.
Are you looking for the very best NFL and college football podcast? Then check out the GSMC Football Podcast. Get the latest football news both on and off the field. From the NFL Draft to trades to the rumor mill to the NFL Combines. They got you covered. That's GSMCpodcast.com/football-podcast. Get updates on college rivalries, game day insights, and much, much more. It's football talk the way you want it. This show eats, sleeps, and breathes football. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
And welcome back to the Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Alongside Alex, I am Ben. Really quickly before we get in...
Sorry, that was a big yawn.
You letting out a little... Are you tired, buddy?
No, just getting my day going.
Just getting going there?
Yeah.
So really quickly before we dive into the French Open, we want to discuss a little bit about Kevin Durant. The Thunder season over. He's now a free agent. What do you think he does in the summer?
I think he signs a 1-year deal with the Thunder. Like we were talking about earlier, Russell Westbrook is a free agent after this upcoming season.
Yes.
So maybe they decide to, pool their talents and try to go somewhere together. I think he'll sign wherever he goes. I think he'll sign a 1-year deal.
I agree with you. I think the Thunder is definitely his best option right now. They were within a fourth quarter of Game 6 of pushing the defending champs out. So yes. The Thunder have a great young core with Adams, Ibaka, Russell Westbrook, Kevin Durant. You can even throw Cancer in there. They have a great young core. I think he, like you said, signs a 1-year deal, stays there until Westbrook's a free agent, and then maybe they team up and go somewhere after next year in the summer. Maybe they bring people to OKC. With the new CBA in the NBA, you can sign 4 max contract players now. So
come on over to Sacramento, guys.
Alex says go to Sac. Go to Marcus Cousins.
It's great weather.
Oh, great weather. 108
so
degrees
hot today.
You can't get that much more else.
Not in Oklahoma. Maybe. Actually.
You might get a tornado there, but we don't have any of those here, so you'll be set in Sacramento.
Yeah, and the river's nice too. Don't get me started. And a new stadium.
Yeah, brand new stadium. I'm actually excited to see where that goes. See how that is.
It's going to go downtown.
Well, no, I know that. I'm talking about like the progression, how it's liked. My grandma's a season ticket holder for the Kings, so I will be able to go check that new Golden One Center out.
We'll go together.
There we go. Maybe we could do a live show from SAC.
I don't know if they would let us do that.
We'll have to check on that.
I'll bring an audio recorder. But yes, I think that he's going to, no matter where he goes, he'll sign a 1-year deal.
I agree.
And we'll see from there what happens. It's, NBA free agency is so weird.
With 4 max players on a team now, could you imagine the possibilities? Like, throw Durant on the Warriors.
Cavaliers.
Throw him on the Cavs or the Warriors right now.
On the Warriors. That was a rumor leading into this past season, I think. So, like,
could you imagine you could have, like, a really, really small lineup. You could throw Steph, Clay, Durant, Draymond Green, and Bogut. Or you could put Green at the 5 with Durant and Iguodala, Steph, and Clay.
Yeah, it's crazy too. You look at the Heat, and they had 3 of the best players in the NBA at their respective positions, and then you look at like the Eagles, who tried to make that dream team a couple.
Oh yeah, they had
years ago.
Asamoah, Vince Young, Michael Vick.
Yeah, they tried to make like a dream team, and sometimes pieces just don't work. So it's like, oh, would that work? Kind of for max players. Or would it work when you have players like the Warriors who all came kind of to relevance together?
Yeah, especially when you have a lot of new pieces going to a team. There's kind of an adjustment period there. When the Heat started out, I realized they went to the finals all 4 years. LeBron was there. But that first year, they sort of struggled a little bit there, and then they finally found their way there.
The second year, yeah. I agree. I don't know. I'm interested to see where he goes, though. Really interested to see where Durant goes, if he stays in Oklahoma City, if he signs a more than 1 year deal, if he signs just a 1 year deal there, if he goes somewhere else. Super, super interested to see that, because I think without him, the Thunder are really a different team.
Yeah, if you just add Westbrook on there, or if you just have Durant on there, they're losing one of the top 5 players in the league, no matter who you throw out of there. So
yeah, former MVP, potential MVP with Westbrook. I think, yeah, definitely a different team.
Yeah, I agree. So
interested to see.
We're going to jump in now to the French Open, which is now into the semifinals of both the men's and women's tournaments. Obviously, on the men's side, you have Novak Djokovic, who's the heavy favorite. He reached the semifinal for a record 6th straight year in a row.
Yeah, the world number 1.
Yes. And then you have Andy Murray on the bottom side of that bracket, who he's going to be going up against Stan Wawrinka.
Yeah, Sam is in the
Wawrinka
women's
of Switzerland. He's the number 3 rank. Obviously, Andy Murray from the UK, the number 2 there. So we'll have to see who comes out there.
I like Andy Murray. He's a good player.
Yeah, Andy Murray.
He played Isner in the first round. That's a good match. Isner, for those of you who don't remember, is one of the members of that longest match of all time.
Yeah, the American. I think that was at Wimbledon, right?
Yes, I want to say it was Wimbledon. A couple years ago. It was either Wimbledon or the U.S. Open. I'd have to take a look, but very good. And then Wawrinka, yeah, he's the number 3 player in the world. I'm saying the nation, in the world, playing against Murray. That should be a pretty competitive game there, and that'll be facing the winner of Novak Djokovic's game.
Yeah, Djokovic is playing Dominic Thiem, who's from Austria, who's the number 13th ranked player in the world.
Yes, that should be competitive. Novak has had a history with guys kind of lower ranked than him, giving him trouble at times, But I think, he's a good player. I think he'll move on and play in the finals there. So I hope it's Murray, Djokovic. That's always been recently a very good matchup.
How sort of important do you think it's been for both those guys, Murray and Djokovic, to advance here with Rafael Nadal, the Spaniard, having to pull out with the left wrist injury? Because he's been so dominant on clay. That's really been his atmosphere that he really dominates on in the world of tennis.
Yeah, I think it's good for them in the sense of not having that extra, I want to say he's 4 in the world right now, that extra hurdle, because Federer didn't play in this either.
Yeah, he's also out with an injury, so it's really just those 2 big names there that are left.
Yeah, well, and Wawrinka's on the up and up. He is, like I said, the number 3 in the world. So I think it was almost a preconceived thing that 1 and 2 would be playing each other. I mean, people always assume that anyway. Yeah. But they always seem to find each other in the French Open. Djokovic and Murray. They always have really good games too.
I think it's crazy how much Djokovic has really dominated the sport over the last 5, 6, 7, 8 years there.
I wouldn't say dominated up until maybe the last 3 years fully. It was between Nadal and Federer for a while. Murray even claimed that number 1 spot. But the last 3 years, I would say, yes, Djokovic has really been the number 1 guy. He's really been the guy in tennis, He's been the top dog.
Yeah, so we'll have to see how those play out there in the next couple of days going into the final. I think the final's on Sunday, I believe. So obviously the time difference is a lot harder here in America because a lot of these games are already done by the time we're even waking up because they start
6 a.m.
3, 4, 5 a.m. So, and then when you throw it over to the women's side of the bracket, we're also in the semifinals, and the world number one, the American Serena Williams,
Yes.
is, of course, there. She's been such a dominant player, even at such a later age in sports. You know, when you really reach your 30s, you're kind of dwindling down there. But Serena's been just as dominant as she...
Excuse me.
You okay?
Yeah, it's allergies, with this heat.
Yeah, it's been heat, but there's a little wind, too.
Yeah, I'm okay, though.
Yeah, so we have Serena here. She's been so dominant as she's sort of dwindling down in her career, almost just as well as she was in her 20s when she was... Seemed like every year she was battling her sister for the
and
Venus Williams.
Venus lost in the opening round. Well, the fourth round, excuse me. She lost in the fourth round to Baczynski, who went on to play in the quarterfinals and lost to Serena's competitor.
Which is Kiki Bertens of Netherlands.
Yeah, and then we moved down to the other upcoming matchup in the semifinals between Stosur.
Yeah, Sam Stosur of Australia. And we have Gabrine. It's such a hard name to pronounce here.
You can do it. I believe in you.
Okay, so we have Gabrine. I'm going to butcher this. Muguruza of Spain.
Muguruza. Gabrine Muguruza.
Yeah, and she's the 4th ranked player in the world, and Stosur's the 21st ranked player in the world.
Yeah, I think it was tough for Venus initially, too, because she was up against Baczynski, who's the number 8, so that's already going to be a tough
8-9
matchup.
there.
Yeah, and she started strong and really ended up losing it in the third and fourth sets there. If you look at Serena's game in the quarterfinals, she won those handedly 6-1, 6-1.
Yeah,
just dominant. Yeah. So I'd say she's the favorite. I want to say she's going to move on to the finals, of course, against Bertens, who's an unranked player, as a matter of fact.
Right.
And then we'll see what goes on with Sam Stosur and Muguruza.
There you go.
Slow it down.
You're doing better than I am already.
We'll see who comes on top there. Like we said, Stosur's 21st in the world, and Muguruza is going to be 4th. So I want to say Williams, Muguruza for the final, and it's almost hard to not pick Serena there for the champion. And I want to say, hopefully, for tennis fans out there who don't necessarily have a favorite, that it ends up being Djokovic-Murray, because those have been good games the last few years. Those have really been great matches. So those would be interesting to see. It's hard to go against either of those players. So.
Yeah, they've been so dominant for so long. Serena did struggle there in the Australian Open. She did not end up winning that when everyone pretty much thought she would.
Yeah,
so I think she has necessarily not a lot to prove because she's been so dominant in the sport. She's won pretty much everything. But she has something to prove that she is still on top of the mountain there in the women's division. So with her semifinal coming up, if she can get past that and then go into the finals against Stosur or Muguruza. So I think she still has something to prove there. She's still obviously trying to come out on top and show everyone how dominant she is.
Yeah, and then like we were saying with the matchups between Murray and Djokovic the last few years, I want to say they played one another in Wimbledon a few years ago, and Murray came out on top and won his first ever major in
Grand
Wimbledon in his home country.
Yeah.
So I think that hopefully those two meet up again in the finals because they just have great matchups. They really do.
Yeah, such good competitors, both of them. Such great players. Obviously, I think Djokovic's probably a better player, but Murray's a good competitor. He never backs down to anyone.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. He played, and they have just tough games. They really do. They have just really competitive matchups. And I'm really interested to see. I am a fan of tennis, as opposed to some people think I'm just a fan of all these big sports. But no, I am a fan of tennis as well.
Yeah, so a lot of the Grand Slam tournaments, when they have those great rallies going back and forth, where they're hitting it 20, 25, 30 times, it's really, really intense. You're sort of like the edge of your seat. I compare that a lot to volleyball a lot of the time, especially with the Olympics coming up. I'm looking forward to the volleyball.
Yes, as am I. I'm very excited for the Olympics. I like the gymnastics. I wish baseball was still going on, but they pulled it. I love the swimming, soccer, as you and I talk about on our soccer podcast. Really entertaining. So this is the last tennis tournament until before the Olympics, actually, too.
Yeah, so we have Wimbledon coming up at the end of this month. Really, the June 27th is when that starts, and
that'll
it's
be the last one.
It's going to be a question whether Nadal can even come back and play at Wimbledon because with the
Federer
injury with the wrist, he's really, really had a bad rap on things.
Yeah, and we'll see if Federer can come back. If not, we'll see if it's Murray's for the taking again this year, or if Djokovic can make a stand again. Really interesting, and of course we'll update you guys with that as well. But today we are all done. We have no more news for you in terms of what we wrote down. Our paper is blank.
Unfortunately, that is everything for today.
That is. But we're going to have to let you guys go. You're going to have to let us go. I don't know. But thank you for
Have
listening.
to let it go, like they said in Frozen.
Exactly. So let it go. Thank you guys for listening to our podcast, the Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. We do shows every week. We should have new episodes every Monday. Tuesday and Thursday.
Thursday. Yep.
Yeah, you guys check us out on iTunes at GSMC _. Well, actually, you don't need an underscore there. If you search GSMC, you can find all of our shows on our great network. Like I said, Ben and I also do the soccer show, and I have a football show that I do with my co-host Jeremiah on Mondays and Wednesdays.
And we are also going to be starting baseball again next week.
Yeah, Jeremiah and Ben are taking baseball, taking that to the forefront of our news.
Taking a swing at the baseball podcast.
There you go.
Did you like that one?
Yeah, I like that. I used the same thing when I said, yeah, let's see if we can tackle this news on our football show.
Speaking of baseball, did you see Neymar taking batting practice with the Mets?
I didn't see that. I'm glad I didn't see that.
You really are glad you didn't see it because it was atrocious.
That'll be something you and I can talk about in the soccer show.
I thought of like Charles Barkley swinging a golf club.
I've seen that in person.
That's
not pretty.
I've seen that in person many times as well.
It was
really that bad, Neymar.
Yeah.
If you're listening. Stick to the pitch, Neymar. Sorry.
Stick to the pitch.
Great
baseball.
Player, I love you, but stick to the pitch.
He did stick to the pitch. Baseball. Batting practice.
Don't stick to the baseball pitch. Stick to the soccer pitch.
Okay. On that note, guys, we will see you with a brand new episode on Tuesday.
Yeah, definitely going to have a lot to talk about. We're going to recap more of the finals, Stanley Cup finals, French Open, and everything else that happens in the great world of sports between now and Tuesday.
Yeah, as always, I'm Alex.
And I'm Ben. Thank you for listening.
And we will see you guys next time.
Goodbye.